Okay, this is Moshe back in the saddle again, my old saddle. We got the um, uh, internet changed around and it's working, and I figured out what was going on from talking to some people that um, I'm having trouble with the iPad. One of them, not the one I'm broadcasting with, the one I'm working on for Bible work and stuff. It's, I don't know if it's on the way out or not. I had to reboot it about 5 or 6 times this morning to get it to work right. So it could be the beginning of the end of that iPad. Let's see if we get it up. I hope it comes back. If it doesn't come back, that's going to be a bad thing. Let's see what happened now. I don't see anything. Oh, there it is. It's back. All right. So, this looks like it's on the way out. I don't know. It seems to be software errors. Some programs are glitching, and I don't know what to do yet. But I have no idea. So our weather is cooling off a little bit more today. We're going to have a high of 87, and then we're going to drop down tomorrow to highs like 82, so we're going to get back to more normal. It's not that bad today. We were hitting like over 100 or 100. We had a 3-day heat. I imagine this has something to do with the crops. Remember that he gave us a lot of rain the last few months. I mean, an amazingly huge amount of rain. And then we got different spurts of warmer weather unseasonable. So I imagine this is the acceptable year, Jubilee year, year of redemption, and getting the crops for the people ready for my people yet to come. Now, let me go into the chat real quick and make sure we got sound and picture and all those other good things that are necessary. And please don't post in the chat for a minute or two till I can get my posts up, okay? It's not going to be long. Make sure we got sound and picture and those other good things that are necessary. Please don't post in the chat for a minute or two till I can get my posts up, okay? Okay, shut the sound off. I put my email address up if people want to ask me questions or something. Almost there. Another couple of seconds. Okay, people are coming in. I got my posts up. We're a Bible-believing site. I'm going to do some praise. If you're a true believer and you want to join in, be my guest. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right. So yesterday I had to get it cut short because the guy was reworking our internet. He put a new modem in and he changed some cables and connections and stuff like that. And it looks like we're in good shape. And then I ordered from another company, fiber optic, which will be here next week, which will be a lot faster on the upload and the down, so the live streams sort of get peppier, although I think they're okay the way they are. And I'm going to keep the old systems to make sure that we're doing good, and then I'll probably drop one of the old systems off or something, I don't know. And I ordered this one with 3 modems, so I got it. They don't charge much for the modem, so I got to put one so I could reach the front yard, one so I could reach the backyard, and one for the house. So things ought to get better. Anyway, they're pretty good now. So the things that I'm teaching, today I'm going to do a fast review on the grape harvest, and I'm going to get into the figs and the pomegranates. And this stuff is reasonably foreign to the church people. And you got to remember the whole world's in a snare. It's in the scriptures. And the people that are not in the snare are the true believers and the elect, the remnant that God knows who they are. They're not yet. They don't know who they are yet, but so the church people are not going to get this. They're going to reject it. All they know is their raptures, and the church is replacing Israel, and we're not Israel, but we stand next to Israel. Yet it says all Israel shall be saved, and they exclude themselves verbally in their understanding and their words from being in Israel, and they run around propagating false doctrines to people. And they refuse and resist the truth of the Bible. They reject knowledge, then they will be rejected. And they have the knowledge in their Bibles. They've read it for, in many cases, several decades, and they still don't want to adhere to the Bible. Yet they make fun of the Jews whose eyes the Lord closed and stopped up their ears. And that's plainly depicted in scriptures that he did it, yet they mock the Jews. Okay, but they're in Gaga land. Now, we used to see a lot of people come in here and harass us in the chat, and they're not coming anymore. And they were harassing us with the Palestinian business, right? And they stopped, which makes me think they realize that the rabbis are going to do a red heifer sacrifice, knock down the temple, knock down the Dome of the Rock and the Alas Mas, and put up their temple, which is what the church calls the tribulation temple. There is no such thing in Scripture. And they're going to have a really bad time. And that's what they're interpreting it, because their doctrines are not much unlike the church doctrines. The church thinks they're replacing Israel, and the Muslims think they're replacing Israel. The source of this is Satan, the doctrines of demons. So when you understand what the Muslims are really believing, and you understand what the church is really believing, it's not very far apart. I mean, it is, and yet again it isn't. They are waiting for I think they call him the Dajjal, the Antichrist. So there's a lot of, similarities. They're both waiting for the same Antichrist, their hero, I don't know if the Muslims have anything like the raptures of the church, but whatever, So things are definitely interesting. $61 billion of aid coming to Ukraine, which I think they've already started shipping to them, is going to infuriate Russia, and it's going to push the axis of evil more, and they're all evil, but I call them the axis of evil, which is Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, and Belarus, basically, right now. And they're going to push harder to get rid of America to do Jeremiah 50:51, and they already have the sleeper agents in place. Now, it came out, and I put this on Telegram, that many of these Arab states, Saudi, Qatar, and others, most of them are giving massive amounts of money to universities in America. So I put it on my Telegram, I think, about 2 days ago. Billions to universities, and the universities are rising up with protests and sleep-ins or encampments on the campus. Now, we need to, being old enough to go through the Vietnam War days, there's a tremendous amount of similarities, and let me kind of explain some things to you that you're probably not going to hear in the media, because I've never seen it yet. The reason for these movements on the campus is they're recruiting to their movement, for one. For number two, they're pressuring Biden's administration. And trying to build bad will for Israel and goodwill for the Palestinian cause. When they say from the river to the sea, they mean the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, which means wipe out Israel. It's not just Gaza. Internet celebrities have gone around interviewing these people and asking them what river and what sea, and the people that are in the protests, the college kids, don't even know. In Vietnam, the communists, which notably were coming mostly from China and from Russia. Russia was a socialist state during Vietnam. It was the USSR, and they were also controlling East Germany at that time, and they were using the Stasi, and the people in East Germany were really suppressed badly, So they started working in the college campuses, preaching against the Vietnam War, which China and Russia were backing the enemies of the U.S. in there. Now, I don't know any good reason for the Vietnam War. The reason the Americans were giving was the spread of communism, which doesn't make a lot of sense, I was not pro Vietnam War in my day. I never worked in the military, as many of you know. I never was in the military. I was in law enforcement a very long time ago. So and I would not go in law enforcement if I had it to do all over again. I didn't know I was working for Satan bought-run agencies like they all are. But moving along, they were recruiting people. They wanted people to resist the draft and go to jail. They wanted kids in the neighborhood to go to jail so the families would see, wow, what a cause this is. These kids go to jail instead of, wanting to go through the military. And, Joan Baez, an old folk singer, would show up with her guitar and, drive the movement. But it was a peaceful movement. See, this is the hook here. The kids that were protesting, like at Ohio State with the National Guard, shot some kids, killed some, and so forth. In places like this, when the National Guard showed up, they were taking flowers and putting them in the rifle barrels of the soldiers. They weren't, fighting. They weren't getting violent. and stuff like this. So they're recruiting. They want to find which of these kids, and these are the my understanding is a lot of this is your sleeper agents, the illegals that became legal with the amnesty, that are running around doing these things. Okay, they're running the kids. Okay, now these are probably agents of countries that were trained to do this. Iran, I doubt. North Korea, I doubt. Russia and China would have people like this that have been trained. A lot would be China. And some, these Palestinians, these military age illegals that became legal, as they say, they crossed and entered into the U.S. illegally, but then show right up at the Border Patrol and file amnesty papers, which a lot of them pre-fill out in Mexico, and then they become legal and they get a court date like 7, 8, 9 years or so in advance, and they're legal until then. So, and the states are trying to give them the right to vote. Some states, I think it might have already happened, and that will help Biden, and that's what I think his motive was, but it's backfiring on him. So, they're getting a little bit more violent, and they're spreading in more campuses. Before they get really violent, they're going to try to spread to many, many campuses, and it's spreading. Okay? And the kids that are being recruited don't really understand what's going on, and they're not pacifists. During Vietnam, they were mostly pacifists, but out from this grew violent people that wanted to destroy the government. SDS was one of them. And I remember once going in New York, they had some rock band. I was out of college, or maybe I was not yet out of college, and there was a concert. Of course, their concerts were free. Someplace, I think it was in Greenwich Village. This was in the 60s. And I went there, and I was watching it, and they'd play music and then talk about the Vietnam War and why you got to stand up against the country. The United States almost fell apart. Most people don't know it. It was close, but they overcome. What they did is they eliminated the draft, and when they eliminated the draft, the pressure went down. And then shortly after they eliminated the draft, they eliminated the draft in 73, I think, and then they were out of Vietnam. First they did a lottery in the 60s or 1970, right around there, and then they just dropped the draft, and then they withdrew out of Vietnam. In other words, they lost. And the two things, cutting the draft out and withdrawing, took the movement and just deflated it, and there was nothing really left of it. And some of these radicals were, there was a black movement that was opposed to the draft because they were getting drafted and put in the infantry in the front lines because they didn't have the education skills, and they weren't scoring high on the tests, and they had problems. They were protesting. And it started getting a little violent, bombings and things like this, but it wouldn't be the way this is. This is, they're trying to recruit them to be terrorists. Probably not for tactical reasons, but for psychological reasons. I don't know how many they'll recruit. They'll recruit some, but I don't think they'll recruit too many. These kids are just looking for a cause and want to get involved, and they're shutting the campuses down. It doesn't do anything to interfere with the United States per se. Right now it's mostly psychological, but they're going to progress away from just the campuses, and they'll protest against military equipment movements, which they did in Vietnam. The protesting kids would go sit down on the railroad tracks where they were transporting soldiers to ship them overseas. Okay, so they would ship out from San Francisco and the West Coast, and they would, from Berkeley, and the big seat of this was in New York and in Berkeley, and they would, go sit on the train tracks to stop the trains moving soldiers. The police would move them away, and I worked in law enforcement in an agency. When I was there wasn't much going on anymore, but the guys I worked with, the other deputies, were involved in this, and I spoke to them about it. And I don't want to go back to the old, what is this, 50 years ago or more than 50 years ago, but they were pretty harsh on the kids, from talking to the guys, that were there at the time. So they're going to start, protesting their weapons plants, like a Raytheon, Lockheed, stuff like that. Try to disrupt that stuff. Nuclear plants is another area they may try to disrupt. They're not going to limit themselves to the schools. They're going to try to spread it, and they're doing a good job of spreading it. And then they'll say, they'll tell the kids it's not working. We've got to expand out from the campuses, and not that many kids are going to, yes, some will participate. So anyway, these kids are, of course, being used as puppets by these trained terrorists, And Biden's getting scared because of the election, and he's trying to appease them, and he doesn't know what to do. So the way that you would stop this, going back to Vietnam, is the war stopped, and then it all went, it fell, just let the air out of the balloon or the basketball, it just deflated. So that's why we hit Iran some days ago to try to get Iran to back off with the proxies. Now, the Houthis have been shooting at ships again, but they haven't hit anything. Now, it is a possibility that the Iranian warship is still back or went back in the Red Sea or never departed. This I don't know. How you pick intel like this up is not easy for civilians. You have to be in somebody's military intelligence network to find out what's going on, and they're not talking. But they haven't hit any ships. So they may have rebuilt the radar or gotten a new radar installation or something, and they're trying to take out ships, and they're not, but they're shooting at them still. Nothing on cutting internet cables, and that's not something they can come with. So the Houthis are back in the saddle again, but they're not effective. And they weren't effective that much with the Iranian warship either. We'll see if they do start getting hits on ships. Then I think it's a safe assumption the Iranian warship is back there using its radar to target ships and guide drones and so forth. Hezbollah has stepped up the attacks on us some, but focusing on military bases, not civilians. And we've assembled a massive amount of tanks and armor and artillery and everything down by Rafah area in the south of Gaza. There's little tent communities that have already been established for them to move into. The tents are not anything like a little camping pup tent. They're rather large. I would say they look like they're about 20 feet long and maybe 8 or 10 feet wide, with the curved roof, and the center of the curved roof is probably 10 feet up or something. They could hold a good amount of people in there. Let me try to think, easy 6, maybe 10, 12. They could hold a lot of people in these tents. I couldn't see if they had wood floors. They might or they might not. I don't know. They could also pour concrete, but then you got to remove the concrete. I don't know what they're up to with that, but Did they give them electricity? I don't know. They probably put some sort of portable toilets around there. Guys, I don't have all the details, and it's still under construction. So, as per Biden, they intend to evacuate as many of them as they can out of there. It's already begun. And then we're going to go in, and it's going to be hot and heavy. Now, Israel is probably very closely, intricately planned this action on Rafah area. So it's probably going to go down rather flawlessly, I would think, because they have much experience in Gaza now, and they know the tricks and the traps of Hamas. So it's probably going to proceed very rapidly and flawlessly, and the amount of firepower they're assembling is quite large. So it could be over in 2 weeks, it could be over in 6, or something like that. Remember, there's a lot of artillery, there's a lot of tanks, armored vehicles, we have aircraft, helicopters, ground troops. It's going to be a big op. Hezbollah may try, I don't think they will, try to turn up the volume on this and attack more voraciously, and Israel will try to get us to stop. But after they saw what we did in Iran, I think they're taking our threats to turn them in, to make them go back to the Dark Ages as extremely serious, and they're afraid of that. Israel seems to not care about the Houthis. They're letting America, UK, France, other countries take care of the Houthis. I see zero indications of Israel attempting to go and start attacking the Houthis. Nothing. The Houthis are too ineffective on their missile and drone attacks at Israel that it just doesn't pay to waste resources. So the Rafah thing will happen in probably a couple of days. I think Passover's rabbinical incorrect date. Passover is probably over Monday night. I have to check Sunday night or Monday night. It's in there someplace. Maybe it's Sunday night. Let's see. And it would be Monday night. So that's the end of the holiday, and then I think Israel may start the Rafah operation. Humanitarian aid in Gaza is flooded. The people in the open air markets are selling food at dirt cheap prices because they don't want it to go bad. They don't have refrigeration. There's tons of food, and it's continuing to flood in. So Biden's happy about that. Evacuating the civilians, he's happy about that. And they're going to use human shields, civilians as human shields. And, it's going to get ugly. War always is. Okay, Iran's going to do next to nothing. They've resigned themselves, I believe, to going back and running their proxies. They have evacuated a lot of their personnel out of South Syria. Iran has their Iraqi and Syrian militias attacking American bases in Iraq and Syria again. So Biden is not happy. And I think Biden realizes if we hit Rafah, we'll shut Hamas down, and that war will end. And then he's going to try to get the Houthis to cease and desist. And, he's got a real problem. Okay? If we win the war in Gaza, I don't see any reason why the Houthis and the Hezbollah are going to just turn around and say, well, the war's over, Because they still have a lot of things they're going to push for. They're going to want us to not occupy Gaza with the military, which we're not going to do. I don't know if people are going to move into Gaza right away as settlers, and Bible from Israel and Bible prophecy, they will, of course. But we're not quite yet there yet. So this might not happen under these current conditions. Okay? So they took a poll and only 25% of the Israelis wanted to have settlers back in Gaza, as they call them, you know. It doesn't look like that's got any legs right now. Biden busting it over it. I don't think it's going to go on. So Russia's mad. $61 billion of aid coming fairly immediately into Ukraine. They're giving them weapons. They're HIMARS missile systems that are the longest range they got, which is probably 200 kilometers or so, which is about 120 miles, so they could reach rather nicely into Russia. And the Russian anti-missile systems are no good. The S-300, the S-400 are junk, and the S-500, which they don't give to other countries, is probably junk also. But we don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's not very good. So those missiles will hit, and they might have gotten better drones. I don't know all and other NATO countries are giving them all kinds of stuff. So what Ukraine's going to do is say, well, Russia's in our territory attacking us, we'll attack them. So this is a game changer, and Russia's going to suffer, and I don't know what Putin's going to do about it. And I don't know how long he's going to wait to do it, whatever he's interested in doing. Okay. At some point, somebody's going to pull the trigger on the sleeper agents, and they're going to get very violent in the U.S. They probably would be very happy having college students mingled in with them when they do these things. So it gives them a camouflage, you know, so it doesn't appear to be all sleeper agents. It looks like it's the college kids uprising. They're not going to recruit 35-year-old people with families and good jobs. Come on, you know. College kids are being supported. They got time on their hands. They're not realistic. Many become bleeding heart liberals, and they just don't know what to do. Okay, they're confused. They're easily influenced. And I don't understand why these girls at the university haven't understood female circumcision and the role of females in Muslim majority countries. I mean, if you try telling them they got to wear a hijab, you know, you're going to have, they're both ballistic. So then, you see, the kids are easily influenced. They're not real smart, and they want to have a cause, you know. Anyway, it's not the end. It's the beginning of the end of these sleeper agents. That's the start. And they'll try to use these kids to disrupt whatever they can in America. Ultimately, they'll go violent, I believe. Not so many of the college kids. Some will, not that many. They don't have the training. They don't have the fortitude, the wherewithal. They're not. When you go back in time, I think to the 90s or the 80s, when they were protesting against the deforestation of America, where the lumber companies and the paper companies were cutting trees down, they grew homegrown terrorists to attack these companies, and they were very effective. Very effective. They would spike the trees. They would put pieces of rebar in the trees where the guys would cut them with these big saws, cut the tree down, and the saws would hit the rebar and break the teeth. And the saw blades were very expensive back then. I think they were $10,000, and they had to be thrown away. They would sneak in at night when the guys weren't working and sabotage their heavy equipment with putting sand in the gas tank and the oil, you know, and these guys were rather effective when they were doing this. They were pretty well trained. They usually went in pairs. They were told to buy secondhand clothing at Goodwill or Salvation Army and rip the labels out and change into these outfits in their car or just before they got out of their car. They'd park at a distance from their target area and then walk. And they carried pepper spray, so if they were cornered by security guards or something like that, they would shoot them with pepper spray and run away. So they were not completely nonviolent, but they were rather nonviolent, you know. And then when they went away, they took those clothes, shoes, and everything from the Salvation Army, and they threw it away at, you know, some location far away from where they lived. And they didn't have much of a problem with cameras back then. That wasn't going on. So they were pretty effective in harassing these lumber companies pretty good. And then the lumber companies started using magnetic devices to check the trees for spikes before they cut them down. And then these kids took spikes that were not made out of metal, I think they were carbon fiber, and they hammered those into the trees and they would break the saws too. And then when they checked the tree, the lumber company would paint an X with white paint on the tree. That meant it was safe to cut it down. So the kids would sneak in at night and put extra X's on trees that they spiked. And the lumber guys would think they weren't spiked. It was also somewhat dangerous for the guys working the saw, because when they hit the spike, it would, you know, sparks would fly and pieces of the saw blade, the teeth would go flying and stuff like that. So it ruined the morale of the laborers. But eventually they put this on Department of Agriculture, who have police, uniformed police, they're federal police with guns and everything, right? And then they eventually decided to get special agents, Department of Agriculture special agents as well, which were plainclothes guys with badges and credentials, similar to like an FBI agent, but nowhere near as well trained or nowhere near as high up in the pecking order of law enforcement, you know. It's like, you know, the Department of Housing has this, Social Security Administration has special agents, FCC has special agents, Food and Drug Administration has special agents, Department of Education has special agents, you know. It's rather silly, they just loaded them up with these, this was about 40 years ago, loaded the country up with all these special agents, you know, and they're running around all over America, and I don't know what they do all day long. What is the Department of Education special agents do? Well, they investigate people committing fraud to get student loans, you know, nonsense, you know, I mean, you know, highly trained criminal investigators, you know, for, you know, it's, the United States has more people in jail per capita than any other country, including China, Russia, Iran, and all of them. They're the worst. They throw anybody in jail for anything. And the vast majority of people going to jail in America, 80%, are for crimes not against persons. So they're basically putting people in jail for victimless crimes. Breaking a statute, you can't grow this crop, you can't possess this crop, you know, stuff like that. You know. So you're seeing the beginning of it, and every day you'll see there's another campus starting up with this garbage, so it's not good. I'm going to shut my door. Hang on a second, I'll be right with you. I can't get out. Dogs in my way. Got the little dogs in here because it's getting hot out there. Hot enough that I don't want to keep them out there in the heat. So, let me do a recap of a couple of the things I did yesterday that are kind of relevant to what I'm going to do today. First, I want to start with the baptism, okay? Let's do Romans 6. Because a lot of you I know are concerned because you haven't been baptized correctly by a true believer. You've been baptized in the churches, and I don't think that's the correct place to go at all. And they probably curse you when you baptize because they lay hands on you. You know, push your head under the water, right? So they're more than likely not missing that opportunity to curse you, lay hands suddenly on no man. So you shouldn't let them lay hands on you either. Okay. Romans 6. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know you not that so many of us, as were baptized into Yeshua HaMashiach, were baptized into his death? See, that's what the baptism is representing, the death of Yeshua and the rising up from that death. Okay? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. You see it? This is what the baptism is about. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin. Now, if we be dead with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him. See, the baptism is a symbolic thing. It's not a literal thing. You're not literally dead and literally rising from the dead in the baptism. It's symbolic. More also like a type of things to come. And if we be dead with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him. Knowing that Christ, being raised from the dead, dieth no more. Death hath no more dominion over him. It's elected unto man to die only once. For in that he died unto sin once. But in that he liveth unto God. Likewise, reckon you also yourselves to be dead indeed unto sin, but alive unto God through Yeshua HaMashiach our Lord. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that you should obey it in the lusts thereof. Neither yield you your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but this thing's not good. It's starting to blow heat. I turned it up too much. Neither yield you your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead, and your members instruments of righteousness unto God. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under grace. And I've told you many times, the grace is because it's impossible for you to observe the law without a temple and the priesthood active. So, the true believers in Yeshua are under grace, in that they still have righteousness with God through Yeshua, peace with God, but they don't have to go through the law, because it would be impossible during the 2,000 years of punishment after the temple was destroyed. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. Know you not that to whom you yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants you are to whom you obey, whether of sin unto death, or of obedience unto righteousness. But God be thanked that you were the servants of sin, but you have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which was delivered you. Well, the churches don't follow that form of doctrine, neither do the rabbis. They don't even follow the Old Testament. Being then made free from sin, became the servants of righteousness. I speak after the manner of men, because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as you have yielded your members servants to uncleanness, and to lawlessness or iniquity, unto lawlessness, even so now yield your members servants to righteousness unto holiness. For when you were the servants of sin, you were free from righteousness. What fruit had you then? In those things whereof you are now ashamed. For the end of those things is death. But now, being made free from sin and become servants to God, you have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life. The end everlasting life. There it is. For the wages of sin is death, and the gift of God is eternal life through Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, so the baptism is a dominant theme in the New Testament. And many of you are troubled because you've not been correctly baptized, but I want you to relax and calm down. I'll explain why. When you read Zechariah 12, the people in Jerusalem and in the house of David have the Spirit poured out on them, and then they receive this eternal life, which is not living until eternity. It's probably something like what happened in the pre-flood days, only better. So you're healed, you'll be young, you'll jump out of the stall like the calf, as per Malachi 4, and the child shall die 100, and you'll walk all day and not get tired, and stuff like that. Okay? So it's really, really good. But you're going to get the real eternity type life when you go into New Jerusalem and eat of the tree of life and the water of life. And that will be the end where you're not going to die. So having everlasting life would still allow for one to die. Okay? I mean, you're going to have a completely different body for the better. And they got there without having any baptism. You read it in Zechariah 12 and Malachi 3 and 4. There's no baptism. Now, Elijah's teaching them, the Levites, not how to baptize. He's teaching them how to do the offerings in the temple or the tabernacle to make them satisfactory to the Lord. He's not teaching them to go out and baptize. So the Lord wanted me to show you to please relax about this baptism. And, you know, when you come to Israel, you don't have to run around and go get baptized because, you know, you'll be fine without it. God understands what's going on and why this is the way it is. Okay? All right. So, if anybody has any questions, you can put them up in the chat. I'll go there and look in the chat myself in a minute, see if I have questions or if I have to throw the garbage out. Okay. I'm gonna check my notes on this. So when you actually do see Yeshua in the clouds, sign of the Son of Man, you see Jeremiah 31 come into play, come into action, take effect. In verse 1 it says, at the same time as Jeremiah 30, Jacob's trouble and so forth, saith Jehovah, I will be the God of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. Thus saith Jehovah, the people which were left of the sword found grace in the wilderness, even Israel, when I caused them to rest. That's your great Exodus, next Exodus. And in verse 8 of Jeremiah 31, to make the point a little further, behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coasts of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame, the woman, the child, and her that travaileth with child. Together a great company shall return thither into Israel. They shall come with weeping, with supplications. With supplications will I lead them. I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way, where they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of Jehovah, for wheat and for wine and for oil and for the young of the flock and of the herd, and their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more at all. Then shall the virgin rejoice in the dance, both young men and old together, for I will turn their mourning into joy. And that mourning into joy is taking us to Zechariah 12, where all the tribes of Israel mourn after they see Yeshua. Hold on a second, it's the internet company, I don't know what they're doing. Oh, it's a survey on the customer service. We'll turn their mourning into joy, and we'll comfort them, and we'll make them rejoice from their sorrow. And I will satiate the soul of the priests, the Kohanim, with fatness, and my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, saith Jehovah. Thus saith Jehovah. Oh, let me just skip ahead here a little bit. Verse 20, is Ephraim my dear son? Is he a pleasant child? For since I spake against him, I do earnestly remember him still. Therefore my bowels are troubled for him, and surely have mercy upon him, saith Jehovah. Behold, okay, I'm in verse 27. Behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man. That's, be fruitful and multiply. Checking my internet. And with the seed of man and with the seed of beasts. So the animals will be fruitful and multiply. Verse 29, this is important, in those days they shall say no more, the fathers have eaten the sour grape, and the children's teeth are set on edge. You see, the children would be punished for the sins of the fathers to the third and fourth generation. But every one shall die for his own iniquity, his own lawlessness. Every man that eateth the sour grape, his teeth shall be set on edge. And that's why you see he puts his mark, which is probably his name, on the foreheads of people at the Gog and Magog war, which now we read. This is found in Ezekiel chapter 9. And nothing bad happens to them because they were grievous over the bad things the people were doing in and around the temple. So they're completely spared. Just the bad ones get cut off. See, where in the past he wouldn't do it that way. He put the whole country in exile. Behold, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with them, with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand, bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith Jehovah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Jehovah. Now this hasn't happened yet. Now the church tells you this is the New Testament. What else is new? They just lie incessantly. It's of course a Brit Chadashah, a New Testament, but it hasn't come into effect yet. And I'll explain it to you. After those days, saith Jehovah. Now I'm in Jeremiah 31:33. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Well, of course, this has zero applicability to the church, who teaches that the law is dead. He's saying here, he's going to put the law in their inward parts, and the word for law is Torah, and they say the Torah is dead. They don't even follow the Sabbath. They disregard the Sabbath. They don't keep his holy day. And they've even changed the Sabbath to another day, erroneously. So it can't possibly have any applicability to the churches, all 2 billion of them. And the Messianic congregations I would lump in there too, because they're all messed up. And write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Jehovah, for I will forgive their lawlessness, and will remember their sin no more. So there's nothing here about getting baptized. This is a new covenant, a change, okay? And when did you ever live or know anybody who ever lived in days where everybody's neighbor knew the law? Of course, this is referencing Israel. After Zechariah 12, and this gives evidence to the fact that when the Israelites will see the sign of Son of Man in the clouds, they will probably be changed also. And that everlasting life, as they call it, is not an eternity thing, so they can be killed. It says the child shall die 100. I don't know any kids running around today living to 100 and dying, as a kid. Thus saith Jehovah, which giveth the sun for a light. And that brings to mind, how long will children be children? Well, if a child dies at 100, they can be a child at 100. So let's say 70 years from then, although it could be 80. All right, let's say 70. So a child is a child for, 20% of that? Something like that, right? So if you're going to go, let's say, just to pick an arbitrary number, 1,000, but I think you would be living longer than that, although because of New Jerusalem coming in about 70 years after that, it's ridiculous to think that way, but so kids could be a kid for quite a while, right? But let's keep going. Thus saith Jehovah, which giveth the sun for a light. Now, if the kid gets into New Jerusalem, let's say he's, 19 years old, and he eats from the tree of life and the water of life, that's not going to make him appear to be an adult. He's going to live through eternity, but he's not going to be transformed into an adult. But once you do eat of the tree of life and drink of the water of life, you die no more. Okay. All right. So that should solve a lot of people's concerns about the baptism. It seems to, when we see the sign of the Son of Man, the need to be baptized is not there anymore. Because when you see him, you'll be like him. While you're not going to be living into eternity, you're going to still be like him. And he's going to put the law in your inward parts, give you a heart of flesh, and things of this nature. So the baptism is probably not necessarily needed. I think I did this prayer request yesterday, but let's repeat it. For SH Sierra Hotel, SH Sierra Hotel, prayer is for success at work. For SH. Deuteronomy 32:14, a little bit of a review. Actually, we don't need the review. We did it yesterday. You guys got the video if you want it. Okay, let me move forward. Real quick, Isaiah 63:8. For he said, surely they are my people, children that will not lie. So he was this, Isaiah 34:8, sorry. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, that's the day of vengeance, and the year of recompenses. So we see the day of vengeance is tied to the year of recompenses. And why? It's over the controversy of Zion. It's the nations picking on Israel, which they're all doing. We want a Palestinian state and all this stuff. Two-state solution, give the land back. They love Satan. They want to be with Satan. They have no faith. They can't believe that there's a better life ahead. So the year of recompense is tied to Day of Vengeance in Isaiah 34:8. Then we go to Isaiah 63, and we see it differently there. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. It's Yeshua, the word made flesh, Yeshua. Therefore, art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the wine fat. That's the wine harvest, which is the grape harvest, which is in the 5th month. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. I will tread them in my anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So we've got the day of vengeance and the year of the redemption and the year of recompenses, so there has to be some overlap, okay? The year of recompenses, the Lord showed me, was on or about August 1st. I don't remember the exact date. I could be 2 or 3 days off. I doubt more than that. It'll be over on or about August 1st. Based on the Genesis 1:14, the new year started February 11th, so the 5th month, so to March, April, May, June, July. So around July 11th will be in the 5th month. Okay. Now the fig harvest is the 6th month. Now in the 5th month, they call it ninth of Av, using the Babylonian names of the months from the Babylonian captivity, which it's in the Bible, but I don't think it's the best way to do it. But moving along, both temples were destroyed during this 5th month, on the 9th of the month. So if God's going to perform this again a 3rd time, it would be something like July 20th, I guess. But there's no saying he has to do it on the same day. There is no temple to be destroyed. So it's starting to look like a stretch, although I could be wrong when we start saying it's going to be destroyed. Because there is no temple. And the next temple, which the church is incorrectly refers to as a tribulation temple, is not going to be destroyed either. It gets defiled when you read it carefully. And in Daniel 8, I think it could be verse 23, they reconsecrate the temple after it's over, so it doesn't get destroyed either. Defiled by unclean going in there, doing bad things, okay? In Isaiah 63, Bozrah, the word Bozrah can mean a sheepfold. It could also be a city, it could be a sheepfold, sheep. Let's go to Matthew 24, 32 and 33. So I just gave you another confirmation, okay, of the date, so we're very close. Matthew 24, 32. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise you, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Pass could mean die, it could mean go away, and to this generation, that would be us. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. All right, so what you're looking at here, when you see all these things, know that it is near, it is even at the doors. And the parable of the fig tree. So the fig tree is in the 5th month, which is coming up on us, and that's when it gets its harvest. And we're the figs, basically. All right, we'll keep running on this. Matthew, wait a second. Matthew 24, 29 and 30. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens is the powers of the air. That's where the demons, the unclean spirits, fly, like where the clouds and the airplanes are. The powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Their powers, they're not going to be destroyed, but they're going to be shaken. They're not going to have their power. The word shaken is probably just means shaken. Well, by implication, it's destroyed. So their power is what the power they have now, Satan's the god of the whole earth, and that'll be gone. Okay. When the sun is darkened and the moon is darkened and the stars fall, that's the actual day of the Lord, as it's so told clearly in Joel 2. Preceding it by how many days, I don't think we know for sure yet, or I haven't been able to figure it out. The sun goes dark, the moon turns to blood, nothing about the stars. That's the warning. But that's down the road, 60-some years, I guess. Okay, so we've got plenty of time to teach and learn that. Let's focus on what's coming up on us first. Now, to compare this, let's go to Luke 21:29 to 31. Luke 21:29, I think. And he spake to them a parable. Behold, the fig tree and all the trees. When they now shoot forth, you see and know of yourself, your own selves, or we would probably say yourselves, that summer is now nigh at hand. Well, it sure looks to me like the branches are getting tender and summer's coming up. So likewise you, when you see these things come to pass, know you that the kingdom of God is near at hand. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. All being fulfilled is you're raised up to heaven, you go up on the clouds of heaven, you meet him in the air. That's when all's fulfilled. We're not told about any prophecy anywhere in the Bible about what happens after we're living in heaven with Father God Jehovah. Nowhere. There's not one prophecy about it. So that's when all is fulfilled. When you meet him in the air, because Father God Jehovah came down and burned everything up, and you go up on the clouds of heaven and spend eternity with Father God. And then I guess the judgment of the wicked ensues after that. So heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Now this I wanted to bring out, Luke 21:35. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Okay, they're under a snare. It's like a snare. They're in the snare. Because they run around believing delusional doctrines of demons. Okay. Hosea 9 verse 10. This should show us who the figs are. Hosea 9 verse 10. Where'd it go? I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first ripe. That should be Bakor. Yeah, Bakor. That's the first fruits. They call it first fruits. Let's call it first fruits. That's what the word really means. I saw your fathers as the first fruits in the fig tree. So the fathers of Israel, the elders, the ones were the first fruits in the fig tree at her first time. But they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves unto that shame, and their abominations were according as they loved. As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird from the birth, and from the womb, and from the conception. Though they bring up their children, yet will I bereave. Okay, so that's talking about the punishment of Israel, the past. You read in the scriptures when Israel was flourishing, the vines, the grapes, and the figs are flourishing. When they're gone, when they're dried up, their roots are gone, stuff like that, things bad happen to Israel, very bad times. Micah 4:4. See, it's important you understand this stuff, or you don't understand these prophecies. You become like the church. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. For the mouth of Jehovah of hosts has spoken. So when you're sitting under your vine and your fig tree and no one makes you afraid, can you imagine this to be the year of redemption started? And we're dividing the land as per Ezekiel 44. And it's summer, so you're sitting under your grapevine and under your fig tree. Is that hard to believe? Do you get that? I think you do. You should. It's not that difficult. All right. Dwell on that for a minute. We're not done with this by far. There's a lot more coming. And I'm going to take a fast break. I'll be right back. If I can get out of the maze here with the dogs. They like to sit near me, and they don't care about me having to jump over them. Mark 13:28. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you in like manner, when you shall see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the door. Verily I say unto you that this generation shall not pass until all these things be done. Okay? Mark 13 is the same type of things in Luke 21 as Matthew 24. So the fig tree is important. Now let's also go to Revelation 6:13. And the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven depart as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And that's the Gog and Magog. The stars falling from heaven are the unclean spirits losing their dominion over the earth. Their power is shaken, the powers of the air. And that it's an analogy to the fig, the untimely figs. These are the figs that didn't ripen, they didn't bear good fruit, get bad fruit. They're thrown down. They're finished, they're cut off. You got it? No. The pomegranates are interesting. They come at the same time. And let's get some interesting things about that. Exodus 28:33 to 36. And beneath, upon the hem, this is the dress of the high priest. There won't be any more high priests because we shifted away from Levi, which Aaron was in, over to Judah, which Yeshua was in. You want to make a case he's no longer in Judah. Why does he refer to as the Lion of Judah? Bad argument. If he's the Lion of Judah, Yudah in Hebrew is Yehudi. That's the word Jew. That's where they got the English word Jew from. So, where's that leave these idiots in the churches that hate Israel and the Jews? It leaves them doing the breaststroke in the lake of fire if they don't cut it out. That's where it leaves them with this nonsense they run around preaching. And beneath, under the hem of it, thou shalt make pomegranates of blue and of purple and of scarlet round about the hem thereof. You see that since the tassels on the garment were on all the outer borders, and they were shaped like pomegranates, not like what the rabbis and the Orthodox wear today with strings. They don't have it right. And bells of gold between them round about. Well, that was for the high priest. A golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate, they alternate upon the hem of the robe round about. And it shall be upon Aaron to minister, and his sound shall be heard when he goeth unto the holy place before the Lord, when he cometh out, that he die not. So as long as they heard the bells ringing, they knew Aaron was okay and was performing the service. If the bells stopped ringing, they would think that perhaps he went in an unclean or a sinful state, and the Lord killed him. Okay? So pomegranates were indicative of the high priest. We don't see Yeshua using the pomegranates in prophecies in the New Testament because it's no longer with the high priest. Now I want to conduct a parallel. This is kind of a different thing between the bad king Saul and Netanyahu. The Lord told them not to get a king. He's going to take your children, put it in the army. He's going to tax you to death. You know, stuff like that. That's Netanyahu. That's Netanyahu. 1 Samuel 14. Samuel's name is Shmuel. It's not Samuel. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan, whose name is Yochanan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bare his armor, Come and let us go over to the Philistine garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. And Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree. So Saul was at this time under a pomegranate tree, so to speak, under the covering of the high priest or the priesthood. You got it? Which is in migrant, and the people that were with him were about 600 men. And Ahiah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, Jehovah's priest, in Shiloh, wearing an ephod, and the people knew not that Jonathan was gone, and not dead, gone. And between the passage by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistines' garrison there was a sharp rock on the one side and a sharp rock on the other side, and the name of the one was Bozez, name of the other sinner. The forefront of the one was situated northward over against Michmash, and the other southward over against Gibeah. And Yochanan said to the young man that bare his armor, come and let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It might be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. And his armor bearer said, now an armor bearer, they wore, breastplate shields on their shin bones and helmets and, various things that were often made out of metal, heavy metal. So they didn't want to walk around wearing all this heavy metal all the time. It would be, wear them out. So they had an armor bearer that would schlep this stuff for them. And when it was time to go into combat, they put the stuff on. And his armor bearer said unto him, do all that is in thy heart. Turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thy heart. Then said Yochanan, behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. And they say thus unto us, tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place, and we will not go out unto them. But they say thus, come up unto us, then we will go up, for Jehovah hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. And both of them discovered themselves unto the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they are hid themselves. Oh, they could be on bomb shelters today. And the men of the garrison answered, the public bomb shelters, you go down staircases and you go in, you go down. The garrison answered Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Yochanan said unto his armor bearer, come up after me, for Jehovah hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. And Jonathan climbed upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. And that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men, within, as it were, a half acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might pass. So, Netanyahu was doing this. He was attacking certain parts of Gaza in different cycles of the war since October 7th. And there was trembling in the host in the field among all the people, the garrisons and the spoilers. They also trembled, and the earth quaked, as it was a very great trembling. Well, we haven't seen that. And the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away, and they went on beating down one another. Then said Saul unto the people that were with him, number now and see who is gone from us. And when they had numbered, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearers were not there. And Saul said unto Ahiah, bring hither the ark of God. That's the Ark of the Covenant. They had that then. The Ark of God was at that time with the children of Israel. And it came, and we'll have that again because it's with the tabernacle. The Ark, the tabernacle, and the altar of incense. And it came to pass while Saul talked unto the priest that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased, and Saul said unto the priest, withdraw thy hand. And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled, and they came to the battle, and behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a very great discomfiture. Moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with the Israelites that were with Saul and Jonathan. Well, you see, they'll come from the north and all that, the scriptures, the prophecy scriptures, and the next great Exodus. Well, there's Jews mixed in with these Muslims. They don't know who they are. They're lost tribes. They were forced conversions to Mohammedanism, or they voluntarily went in to be able to live in peace with them there. They didn't have faith, but they were still Israelites. And now God's going to wake them up, and they're going to come back to Israel. See, there's a lot of typology here. They could even be attacking us. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Likewise, all the men of Israel which had hid themselves in Mount Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in the battle. Well, we're following hard, not chasing them, but we're hitting them hard in the battle now. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over onto Bethaven. Now, we're going to get delivered out of this, not the evil, but the good ones will get delivered out of it, Jacob's trouble. And the men of the greatest Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. This is Zechariah 12, which is not Gog and Magog. It has no match whatsoever. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening. Okay, well, anyway, that's sort of an analogy. If you read it, you can see some similarities between Gaza today and Netanyahu. Netanyahu's a bad king. The people said, oh, we don't want God, we want our own king. Well, instead of having a king, they have a prime minister. There's not a lot of difference except they rotate. That's it. They didn't want God, they wanted man to rule over them. And they're in the process of learning a very big lesson. Very, very big lesson. Okay, I think I've covered what I was supposed to cover today. Let me see if we're getting questions in the chat, because I'll try to answer questions. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Hit the vape. Well, we don't need that person. Can I speak on hypoborea of Agartha? That has no bearing on what we're talking about today. So I try to answer questions, but I try to, answer relevant questions, not people that throw me off on all over the place. Let's see what's going on in the current events real quick. If we've got anything relevant happening right now. Let's see. Netanyahu is supposedly afraid that the International Criminal Court is going to issue arrest warrants for Israeli officials. And people are saying that is why he's delaying Rafah. Well, I don't believe that. I think he's delaying Rafah for other reasons, like humanitarian aid and, more importantly, getting as many civilians as he can out of there. They can't come into Israel and arrest them. Israel's not part of the International Criminal Court. They could put a red alert out on him when he goes to another country. They could grab him, but whenever he goes to another country, he's going to cover that before he goes, and he's going to have full diplomatic immunity. He'll get a diplomatic visa from the other government, from the government of the country he's visiting before. So that makes him immune from criminal and civil process, so it won't have no bearing on him. Well, you see, the other reason he's delaying going into Gaza is Hamas is getting nervous. And they're trying to change the negotiation, but it's not significant enough to. They're changing their approach to still wanting hundreds of terrorists out of jail, if not thousands, and wanting Israel to completely leave Gaza alone so they could stay in control and rise again another day to kill us, so they can keep getting money from the wealthier Arab countries. So UN officials were touring this temporary pier that Biden is fixing up in Gaza, which I'm rather certain is going to be used to put American troops in Gaza or international troops from the UN. And Hamas is shelling at it. See, they're really contrary to everything, these Hamas people. They're not really wrapped too tight. Oh, Ohio State University has had these Palestinian demonstrations and arrested people. That's a new one coming into it. George Washington University is also kind of like a new one coming into this too. See, this anti-Semitism in America is going to get the Israelites and the people that have true Bible doctrine ready to get out of there. They're going to want to get out of there. And that's part of the next great exodus. As far as I know, the Houthis yesterday attacked a ship called MSC Darwin in the Gulf of Aden, which is, I believe you'd say, south of Yemen, immediately south. they attacked it, but I don't think anything happened to the ship. I've not picked up any damage reports or anything. So they don't want that pier built up for some reason. The Hamas people. They got more food in Gaza right now than they know what to do with. They got water. If Hamas had his way, he would make Biden tell Israel, you have to let the missiles get through. You have to let Hamas have missiles to defend themselves, you know. They don't go that far. So I think things are going to stick around like they are now. You know, they'll be like this, Hezbollah and Houthi stuff, and we'll go into Rafah probably after Passover. Could Netanyahu be attacking Lebanon first and then going to Rafah? He could, but I don't see any signs of it. What's next is Zechariah 12. That's the next battle. And you should do well to study that. Okay? And you could read that with Malachi 3 and 4. And remember to read John 6, verse 40. So read Zechariah 12 and 13, actually, because it's a continuation. Read Malachi 3 and 4 and read John 6, verse 40. And you'll understand what's going to happen next. Okay? Ezekiel 38, 39 is going to happen decades down the road. Nothing soon. All right. So I think that's what I wanted to accomplish for today. I hope you got something out of it. So please pray we get a good installation on the fiber optic next week. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues, to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for me and my wife to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for our finances, and pray for better videos. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach and Father God Jehovah. And that's it, kids. So get this. All right, and I'm out. Let's see what our time was. Oh, just about 2 hours. That's about right. Okay, guys, I'm out. Thank you.